Brothers and sisters, the advent of the fall season here in the Rocky Mountains brings with it the glorious colors of leaves transforming from green to blazing oranges, reds, and yellows. During the fall, all nature is in a state of transition, preparing for the cold, austere beauty of winter. Autumn is a particularly exciting time for the fly fishermen, for this is the time trout are driven by an almost insatiable hunger to feast in order to fortify their bodies against the scarcity of winter food. The goal of the fly fisherman is to catch trout through skillful deception. The adept fisherman studies trout behavior, weather, the water current, and the types of insects trout eat, and when those insects hatch, he will often craft by hand the lures he uses. He knows these artificial insects, embedded with tiny hooks, need to be a perfect deception, because the trout will identify even the slightest flaw and reject the fly. What a thrill it is to watch a trout break the surface of the water, inhale the fly, and resist until it's finally exhausted and reeled in. The test is the pitting of the fisherman's knowledge and skill against the noble trout. The use of the artificial lures to fool and catch a fish is an example of the way Lucifer often tempts, deceives, and tries to ensnare us. Like the fly fisherman who knows that the trout are driven by hunger, Lucifer also knows our hunger or our weaknesses and tempts us with counterfeit lures, if taken, can cause us to be yanked from the stream of life into his unmerciful influence. And unlike a fly fisherman who catches and releases the fish unharmed back into the water, Lucifer will not voluntarily let go. His goal is to make his victims as miserable as he is. Lehi said, "And because he, Lucifer, had fallen from heaven and had become miserable forever, he sought also the misery of all mankind." I add my voice today to the voices of my brethren that Lucifer is a clever and cunning intelligence. One of the main methods he uses against us is his ability to lie and deceive, to convince us that evil is good and good is evil. Right from the very beginning, in the great council in heaven, Satan sought to destroy the agency of man, which I, the Lord God, had given him. And he became Satan, yea, even the devil, the father of all lies, to deceive and to blind men and to lead them captive at his will. Now the battle over man's God-given agency continues today. Satan and his minions have the lures all around us, hoping that we'll falter and take his flies so he can reel us in with counterfeit means. He uses addiction to steal away agency. According to the dictionary, addiction of any kind means to surrender to something, thus relinquishing agency and becoming dependent on some life-destroying substance or behavior. Researchers tell us there is a mechanism in our brain called the pleasure center. When activated by certain drugs or behaviors, it overpowers the part of our brain that governs our willpower, our judgment, logic, and morality. This leads the addict to abandon what he knows is right. And when that happens, the hook is set and Lucifer takes control. Satan knows how to exploit and ensnare us with artificial substances and behaviors of temporary pleasure. I have observed the impact when one struggles to win back control, to become free from destructive abuse, and addiction, and to regain self-esteem and independence. Some of the most addictive drugs that, if abused, can hijack the brain and take away one's agency. They include nicotine, opiates, heroin, morphine, and other painkillers, tranquilizers, cocaine, alcohol, marijuana, and methamphetamines. I'm grateful for doctors who are trained to prescribe proper medications to relieve pain and suffering. Unfortunately, too many in our communities today, including some of our own members, become addicted to and then they abuse prescription medications. Lucifer, the father of all lies, knows this and uses his influence to steal away one's agency and capture the abuser with his awful chains. Recently, I talked to a sister who was in a psychiatric unit of a local hospital. She shared with me her sorrowful journey from complete mental and physical health, a wonderful marriage and a family, into a mental illness, debilitating health, and a breakup of her family, all of which started with the abuse of prescription painkillers. 2 years prior to our conversation, she was hurt in an automobile accident. Her doctor prescribed a medication to relieve the almost unbearable pain. She thought she needed something more, so she forged prescriptions and finally resorted to buying heroin. This led to her arrest and incarceration. Her obsession with drugs caused her marriage to fail. Her husband divorced her and retained the custody of her children. She told me that besides helping to dull her pain, the drugs also provided a short-term but heightened sense of euphoria and well-being. But each dosage of drugs lasted only a few hours, and with each use, the duration of relief seemed to lessen. She began to take more and more of the drugs and got caught up in the vicious cycle of addiction. Drugs became her life. The night before I talked with her, she tried to commit suicide. She said she could no longer deal with the physical, emotional, and spiritual pain. She felt trapped with no way out, with no hope. This sister's problem with prescription and other drug abuse is not unique. It is happening all around us. In some places, more people die from prescription drug abuse than die from automobile accidents. Brothers and sisters, stay away from any kind of substance that may trap you. Even one sniff or something or one pill or one drink of alcohol can lead to addiction. A recovering alcoholic told me that just one drink is the difference between addiction and sobriety. Satan knows this. Do not let him hook you with his artificial lures that can quickly turn into addiction. Now, brothers and sisters, please don't misunderstand what I am saying. I am not questioning prescription medication